Israel has launched several attacks on Syrian territory in the early hours of Tuesday. The Syrian army says Israel has carried out 3 attacks with warplanes and ground-to-ground missiles. The first attack targeted an army base near the city of Hutaifa. The Syrian Air Force says it has shot one of the Israeli jets. Missiles were also fired from the occupied Golan Heights, 2 of which were intercepted by the Syrian air defense system. No casualties have been reported in the attacks. To discuss that, we're now joined by Ali Rizk, who is a political analyst. Ali, what do you make of, once again, the Israeli involvement, interference really, in Syria?
You know, the way things are going in Syria with the Syrian army and its allies on the verge of victory against the Wahhabi terrorists, ISIS and others, with things going in this direction, it's not at all in Israel's interest. So I think that Israel, basically from its own perspective, has no choice but to intervene in order to, try and maybe delay that dreadful outcome, according to Israel's opinion, the dreadful outcome of the Syrian army and its allies achieving victory against the Wahhabi terrorists. So, this is maybe, as I said, it's a way for Israel to delay this victory because things aren't going in its favor. And so bearing that in mind, I think that you might well see, in fact, I think you will certainly see more of such similar Israeli strikes over this year of 2018. But what's also interesting is that what you referred to in that news item about the Syrian army being able to intercept, opening fire at Israeli aircraft, if indeed these Syrian military capabilities, these anti-air capabilities, do further improve, they could also have an impact or might deter Israel, depending on how much improvements we see, especially if Syria gains more and more access to this Russian anti-aircraft defense capabilities. So that's also a factor to bear in mind. But, as I said, I once again emphasize, I think that 100% you're going to see more similar Israeli attempts in the near future, because Israel basically, is trying to do whatever it can to prevent that complete victory from being achieved by the resistance axis in Syria.
Ali, I wanted to talk about, in fact, the Syrian capabilities and the Syrian response to this strikes, saying that obviously Syria says that it struck one of the Israeli jets. Do you think that Israel is prepared for a more direct confrontation, that is prepared for these sort of responses, or do you think it may not want that sort of a confrontation at this time?
For now, my judgment is that, they'll stick to such strikes like the one which we're talking about right now, such isolated, limited strikes. I don't think that Israel is prepared to further broaden or enter into a more direct military confrontation, because a more direct military confrontation against the Syrian army won't only be against the Syrian army, it'll be against the resistance axis as a whole, and I'm not sure that Israel is prepared to do that. That being said, you never know what could happen. I'm not sure that we're facing rational politicians, whether it be Netanyahu, the Israeli premier, or indeed Donald Trump. As we heard in that book, Fire and Fury, it doesn't appear that we're up against a rational individual. So bearing that in mind, while my judgment is that it's very unlikely that Israel will enter into a direct military confrontation, it's always possible that anything could happen, particularly now when you have these irrational leaders who are leading in Israel and also in the US.
Okay, Ali, we'll leave there at that, but of course, as always, we appreciate you sharing your insight with us.